Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, celebrity interviews, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
Welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. But for our radio audience here in Mississippi at WYAD 90.1 FM and WYADonline.com, we're glad that you all could be with us. Also tuning in to our friends at iHeartRadio and Amazon Music Podcasts around the world. We're glad you all could be with us as well. As we're continuing our celebration of National Book Month, I have someone who's I've always enjoyed speaking with on the program. They're back with their new book today. We're excited to welcome back best-selling author David Baldacci. He's celebrating the release of the Memory Man coming back to us in Long Shadows. We're going to talk to David not only about the newest book, but also what it's been like for him to see the response to Amos Decker, his amazing journeys, especially in this new book. If you guys have not gotten your copy, of course, we'll remind you can do that, as well as we'll talk a little bit about David's foundation as well. David, again, thank you so much for the time. Really do appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to be on. Thank you.
Well, look, we cannot celebrate National Book Month without talking about you, because you are, I think, every storyteller's favorite storyteller these days. I mean, you've been able to create these books, David, that people love coming back to, especially when it comes to characters like Amos Decker. What has that been like for you, David, to be able to see the way that people have not only latched onto these books, but also really taken into these characters?
It's always a fabulous feeling. I mean, when you create something from scratch and you give it out to the world, hopefully it'll be a positive response. It certainly has been with Amos Decker. I was at a book signing event last night, and a lot of people were there, and they were thrilled that Decker was back again after a couple of years absence. And when I first created the guy, I really thought that he was unique and different, and I was hoping that people would relate to him, even though he's certainly not the perfect hero. He's got a lot of bad habits and traits, and he can be annoying at times, but he's got a big heart, and he's tries to do the right thing. So it's been gratifying to see the response from readers.
And David, that is the thing I think that is so true with you, with so many of the characters you've been able to give us. And even though we haven't seen Amos in a little while, you've given us some great books to keep us entertained for different ages for sure. Talk to us about that, because whether we're talking about your foundation and your support of literacy among different age groups or your books, you've been able to really give readers of all ages something to enjoy. Was that part of your mission when you kind of became a storyteller?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a writer today because I was a reader as a little kid, and books really saved me in many ways, changed me in many ways, gave me perspective on the world that I have to this day. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia in the 60s. It was a very segregated society, and I never had an opportunity to leave Richmond as a child. I just didn't have the economic means to do that. But I went to the library and I saw the world through books. And I have to tell you that experience of visiting other people in other places and other countries around the world made me, among many other things, empathetic, sympathetic, tolerant. I broadened my horizons. I got to see how other people who didn't necessarily look like me or pray like me or eat or dress like me, we shared the same common core of humanity. And I've always been convinced my whole life that if more people read books, we'd have a much better world. Books are a magical sort of tool. They're almost like a superpower. You talk about a superfood to keep you healthy. Books are superfoods for your brain and your soul. And they will expose you to things that you've never been exposed to, and they will open your mind to a lot of different things, and they will make you a better person.
David, I totally agree with that. And I think for readers like myself, I think that's the great thing about fiction, ironically, is that it allows us to even think about the truth of the world we live in and discuss it in a safer way that's not confrontational. Yes. Because, like in books like Long Shadows, we're able to see how individuals, whether they are judges or whoever they may be, that no one is perfect. We all have our own thing. But what I thought was so interesting, David, about, and I'll talk around this for those who haven't gotten Long Shadows already, but what I thought was so interesting is that it's so great that Decker gets this particular case, because as someone who has the memory he has, when I thought about the title as the book went on, it's like, what? Things that we do kind of cast a shadow on us, good or bad, or on those that we love. What was it like for you to kind of play with that idea of shadows, and how just because we do something in a moment, it goes beyond that moment and can have lasting impact?
Yeah, that for me, it was obviously the dominant theme in this book, where old sins cast long shadows, and the things that we do, the choices we make, and decisions we make throughout our lives, don't just exist in a vacuum, and they don't just have power or meaning right at the moment we make them. They oftentimes, you turn right or left, you meet this person as opposed to that person, you decide to have a child at a particular time, you don't decide to have a child at a particular time, you take a new job or don't. Those things, they have enormous impact over your entire life. And your life can be totally different whether you turn right or left on a particular day. So I found that fascinating in the novel, and I tried to tie it into sort of the perplexities and dilemmas that Decker was facing on a personal level at the same time, because he's got his own demons he's chasing, and he knows that he has, in this book, he's confronted with a lot of change. He's got a brand new partner. He doesn't really want to be a partner with anybody. He's got a new case he has to take on. He's gotten some bad news from the Cognitive Institute about his brain trauma, and he had a in the beginning of the novel, an enormously traumatic event happened to him that just sort of blew him away. So he has a lot he has to deal with. But as human beings, we have to make decisions every day, whether we want to or not, good or bad. We do the best we can at the moment that we make them, without really thinking, for the most part, about, God, how is this going to affect me and people I care about 30 years from now? We don't necessarily do that. When we make a decision about, I'm going to take a new job, we're not thinking about, how's this going to work out in 30 years? That's just not the way our brains work. It's sort of more in the moment. But as time goes on after you've made the decision, you tend to see how that decision has and will continue to impact you and those around you for a long time.
Yeah. Such a great point. And again, that is what makes characters like Decker so beloved. And so you mentioned when you first created Decker, and again, you've given us some great characters over the years, David. Have you found, though, that is kind of the common denominator, though, for a lot of readers, that they like the fact that these characters are strong, are able to do these great things, but they are, at the end of the day, just like us. They have their own issues they're dealing with and just trying to make the most of the lives that they have.
Absolutely. I think that's a universal theme. Nobody wants to read about a perfect person who has no problems. I wouldn't anyway. I'd throw the book across the room. But I want to read about characters who I feel like I have a visceral connection to. I like to see characters who don't always make the right decision, who are struggling with trying to come up with, some way around some type of obstacle, which we all do on a daily basis, who say the wrong things at times, who turn right instead of left and then later regret it. But at the end of the day, the point becomes, okay, we all mess up. I get that. But how do we react to that? Do we crawl under a rock? Do we try to pretend we didn't make a mistake? I found, over time that the hardest thing for people to do sometimes is to admit that they were wrong. And so instead of admitting they were wrong, which would take just a few seconds and then they can move on, they build this elaborate false reality that explains why they actually weren't wrong, even though none of it is true. So human beings are an interesting species, and I find them endlessly fascinating, in my novels. And Long Shadows is no exception to that. There are a lot of pretty interesting folks that inhabit this book.
You mentioned your recent book event, David. Talk to us about what that's been like for you to be back out there and to be able to meet your fans again face to face.
It was a terrific moment. I mean, we've pretty much the world has lost the last 2.5 years, and human beings are social creatures. We like to be with other people. We like to talk and interact and mingle and just listen and be part of something. So it was, Zooms are okay, but there's a line in the book where Decker talks about that he remembers a time when Zoom used just to be a verb, and he wished it still were just a verb. So for me, it was deeply gratifying. I'm part of this ecosystem of the world of books, that publishers and booksellers and readers and writers, we're part of this little ecosystem. And we all need to do our part to support that ecosystem. And part of the things that I can do is that I go out, I meet with my readers, I sign books to them. That helps the readers. They encourage them to read more books and get excited about reading and books. It helps bookstores, who need to sell books in order to stay in business, and it helps publishers. So it's just part of this ecosystem that I generally like to get out and meet people. I'm very much a people person. I like to get out and talk about books and take questions and all that.
David, to that point, and again, I've enjoyed speaking with you over the years, and again, I thank you every time for taking out the time. It's something at this point in your career, of course, you could just put the books out. You didn't have to have, interviews like this. You don't have to do book events these days because, if a new book comes out by David Baldacci, people are going to go out and get it. What is it that keeps that fun for you?
I think that I love books and writing so much that I like to go out and sort of spread the word to people about it. This is, to let them know, this is why I love reading so much. Let me just give you my take, and maybe they might share it, and they might take that take and share it with other people, and we might get more readers out of that, which would be a wonderful thing. And I also love talking about the creative process. I like getting people excited about books and reading because I think it's a very fundamental part, should be a very fundamental part of anybody's life. And if I can get out and do that in a small way, group to group, as new books come out and talk it up, I think that's a very positive thing, not just for, the ecosystem I talked about selling books. I just mean about being a human being and being a better human being. I think these types of engagements that I do across the country, are a positive thing, and I'll continue to do them.
Last thing I want to talk to you about, David, again, I appreciate this. Again, we want to remind our audience that Long Shadows is out now for you guys to get, but because it is National Book Month, I do want to ask you again about the foundation, David. We talked about what you've done with Wish You Well Foundation. Talk to us about what it's been like for you to see the impact it's been able to have when it comes to promoting reading.
It's been tremendous. You see people taking control of their lives. You see people becoming more self-sustaining because their literacy skills are higher and better, which in this day and age, everybody needs to have that in order to get ahead. And we branched out more into, we're funding a literacy center in a rural part of Virginia that will enable the community to have a place where both young people and adults can come and strengthen their literacy skills, get books to read, get reading instilled in their lives. Those are all important endeavors. And, with the Wish You Well Foundation, certainly over the time of COVID, we've given out more money during COVID than we had over previous years just because the need was so great. So many funding sources dried up for a lot of these institutions and organizations, and we tried to step into the breach and fund as many of those as we can. So it's been a very positive thing.
And we definitely appreciate that. Again, everyone, best-selling author David Baldacci has been our guest. The new book is Long Shadows. You guys can find out more information about the foundation by going to wishyouwellfoundation.org. Of course, the book can be gotten at your favorite local bookstore or through our friends at Amazon.com. David, again, congratulations to you, and thank you so much again for the time. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you. I always enjoy it.
Thank you. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live. Let's go make today amazing. Take care.